It's Friday, April the 12th, 2024. Welcome to the Daily Article Podcast. I'm Chris Elkins, narrating today's article written by Denison Forum co-founder and CEO, Dr. Jim Denison. The FBI arrested an 18-year-old in Idaho after discovering what is termed a truly horrific and violent plot to attack churches this past weekend on behalf of ISIS. According to an FBI investigator, his attack plan involved using flame-covered weapons, explosives, knives, a machete, a pipe, and ultimately firearms. The would-be terrorist also stated his intention to die while killing others on behalf of ISIS. In related news, FBI Director William Wray told an American Bar Association luncheon in Washington, D.C., quote, "The foreign terrorist threat and the potential for a coordinated attack here in the homeland, like the ISIS-K attack we saw at that Russian concert hall a couple of weeks ago, is now increasingly concerning. October 7 and the conflict that followed will feed a pipeline of radicalization and mobilization for years to come." End quote. Why is this the case? Geopolitical analyst George Friedman popularized the concept of the quote-unquote meta-narrative. As I explained in a podcast on the subject, meta-narrative is a nation or group's cultural DNA or overall purpose. Understanding it is essential to interpreting their past and predicting their future. Several years ago, ISIS made their meta-narrative clear. In explaining why it hates the West, the group listed the West's disbelief in Islam, the prevalence of secularism, atheism, quote-unquote transgressions against Islam, military operations, and tactical incursions. The group added that even a complete withdrawal from the Middle East would not stop its violence because our primary reason for hating you will not cease until you embrace Islam. End quote. For America to confront this meta-narrative effectively, it is vital that we return to ours. Michael Lind is a professor at the University of Texas at Austin who has previously taught courses on American democracy and foreign policy at Harvard, Johns Hopkins, and Virginia Tech. In a deeply researched article published this week in Tablet, he notes, "Most Americans, though not all, from 1776 onward have shared and continue to share a common language, a common culture, and common values that transcend particular religious groups." End quotes. While we're a melting pot composed of people from around the world, our democracy works because we share what Lind calls a coherent national community in which we embrace foundational values that transcend our governmental charter. By contrast, our secularized post-truth insistence upon tolerance is rapidly producing an atomized culture in which we are bound only by our laws. But Lind warns that if the larger element of a common American culture are thrown out by our society, what remains is more likely to be a failed state along the lines of Lebanon or Somalia than a flourishing democracy. End quote. If public polls are any indication, we're already heading in that direction. According to Pew Research Center, public trust in our institutions has fallen from nearly 80% in 1964 to less than 20% today. A recent Gallup survey charts a precipitous decline in American satisfaction with the way things are going in the U.S. from more than 70% in 2004 to 23% today. In my view, these findings are linked. If you were to ask an American of my parents' World War II generation why our nation exists, they would likely have said that we serve to protect and promote democracy around the world. If you ask an American today, what would they say? Would any two answers agree? Our God is a loving Father who wants to bless us, who invites us in Psalm 81, verse 10 to open your mouth wide and I will fill it. Then in verse 16, he desires to feed you with the finest of wheat and to satisfy you with honey from the rock. However, a holy God cannot bless that which is unholy and remain holy. Nor can a loving father bless that which harms his child. Consequently, no nation's unity or flourishing is guaranteed, as today's anniversary of the beginning of the U.S. Civil War demonstrates. Michael Lynn's essay reinforces my argument this week. 1. Our national future requires the consensual morality upon which our democracy depends. 2. Consensual morality requires changed hearts, not just enforced laws. 3. Changed hearts require the transforming agency of the Holy Spirit. This means that evangelism is not the imposition of personal opinion, but the sharing of life-giving truth. Spiritual formation is not the religious hobby of some, but the indispensable path to flourishing for all. Serving Christ is vital to serving America. Stated succinctly, being people God is able to bless is essential to being a nation God can bless. Oswald Chambers noted, if I obey Jesus Christ in the seemingly random circumstances of life, they become pinholes through which I see the face of God. How fully will you see the face of God today? The Denison Forum team is grateful for our daily article podcast subscribers. Please share the podcast with others. And for more news discerned differently, visit denisonforum.org.